Garmin versus Suunto, the battle of the ages. That was a little bit too cheesy. Let's just compare these two watches. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave from Chase to Summit, and in this video we're going to be comparing the brand new Suunto 9 Peak against the older Garmin Fenix 6S. After I posted my full review of the Suunto 9 Peak, I think about a week ago, I'll link that up here if you want to watch that video that dives pretty deep on the Suunto 9 Peak. I got a lot of comments in that video asking me to compare it to the Garmin Fenix 6S because it's got a lot in common in terms of feature set, price point, and build quality to the Garmin Fenix 6S. And that's what this video is going to be today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we dive in though, I do want to mention that this video is sponsored by my friends over at playbetter.com. Playbetter.com is a USA authorized retailer for Garmin, Polar, Coros watches, and they also offer free 2-day shipping and a free no-hassle 60-day return policy. So you can change your mind 2 months later and still get your money back, and I really like that. Not only that, but for viewers of my channel, there are some pretty sweet discounts that are available, and you can find those down in the links in the description of this video down below. And also down in the description will be links to both of these watches at PlayBetter and Amazon, so go check those out for the best pricing available on both of these watches right now. Okay, with all that blabbering out of the way, let's get into the video. Suunto 9 Peak versus Garmin Fenix 6S. First of all, I want to set some context for this video. I'm not going to dive through every feature of both of these watches because they both have a ton of features. This video is really going to be a high-level comparison, comparing features to features, and also some of the accuracy coming out of both of these watches. If you want to dive deeper into either one of these watches, I have dedicated review videos for both of them, and I'll link those down below or up here. I don't know, somewhere on your screen will be those videos. All right, let's talk about buying options between both of these watches. The Garmin Fenix 6S has a ton of different models. You can buy the base model that doesn't have maps, music, or Wi-Fi. You can get the Pro model that has maps, music, and Wi-Fi. And then you can also buy the Sapphire model to get maps, music, and Wi-Fi. Between all three of those flavors, there's a bunch of different colors and band options and all kinds of different SKUs. So there's really too many for me to cover in this video. The Suunto 9 Peak, on the other hand, doesn't have as many options. It starts at $569 for the steel version I have here, and then it goes up to $699 for the titanium version. In between the steel and titanium options, there's a bunch of different colors that you can choose from. I just have the plain old black one here, but they've got all kinds of different colors available. Okay, now let's talk about the hardware between the Garmin Fenix 6S and the Suunto 9 Peak. As you can see here, they're pretty similar in size, and I think that's why this comparison was requested so often. The Garmin Fenix 6S comes in at 42 millimeters in diameter, and it's about 13.8 millimeters thick. The Suunto 9 Peak comes in at 43 millimeters in diameter, and it's about 10.5 millimeters thick. So as you can see, just holding them, the Suunto 9 Peak does look like a bigger watch, but when you flip them on their sides, you can see that the Garmin Fenix 6S is significantly thicker, so it does stick off your wrist a little bit more. Another thing I noticed is that the lug-to-lug distance, that's the distance from the mounting points of the band, is actually a little bit smaller on the Suunto 9 Peak, so it might suit thinner wrists just a little bit more comfortably, but that's hard to say. And here's what they look like on my men's 165mm circumference wrist. You can see that the Garmin Fenix 6S is indeed a little bit thicker, so it does stick off my wrist just a little bit more. But neither of these watches are overly bulky, and they're both very comfortable to wear day to day, 24 hours a day, going to sleep with them, not a big deal at all. In terms of weight, the Garmin Fenix 6S comes in at 58 grams, and the 9 Peak comes in at 62 grams. So again, very similar, not a difference you'd noticed on your wrist. Now, when it comes to actual build quality, that's going to depend on what model you buy on the Garmin Fenix 6S. The model I have here is the Garmin Fenix 6S Sapphire. So it's actually got a sapphire crystal lens, a stainless steel bezel with a DLC or diamond-like coating, and it is ruggedly built. It's a very robust watch. I don't need a screen protector. I've whacked it off plenty of rocks, and it still looks basically brand new. Keep in mind, this watch is probably 6 or 7 months old now, so it's been around for a while. The Suunto 9 Peak is much the same. It's got a sapphire lens. It's also got a stainless steel bezel with a really nice PVD coating, and so far this has also been holding up really well. Very well made, very durable. And of course, both of these watches are waterproof to a depth of 100 meters or 10 atmospheres, so you can go swimming in the pool with them, you can take showers with them, open water swimming, that's all fine, just no deep water diving. Just generalizing on the build quality, I might give a slight edge to the Suunto 9 Peak because more of the body is actually made out of metal, where most of the body on the Garmin Fenix 6S is made out of plastic. That plastic really doesn't bother me, and it's still a really well-made watch, but if I had to pick one that would survive like getting shot by a bullet or something, it might be the Suunto 9 Peak. The Suunto 9 Peak also has a 3-button layout here, where the Garmin Fenix 6S has a 5-button layout, so all of the functions are done through the buttons on the Garmin Fenix 6S, while you have a touchscreen on the Suunto 9 Peak. The included watch band on the Suunto 9 Peak is really nice and stretchy, it's very comfortable to wear, and it's also an industry standard quick release band, so you can just pop it off with your fingernail and put a brand new one on, different materials that you can find on Amazon or direct from Suunto. The Garmin Fenix 6, on the other hand, does have a really nice silicone band in the box. This actually isn't the one that came in the box, but it's very similar. And the Garmin Fenix 6S uses the quick fit system from Garmin, which is a lot easier than the quick release bands you'll find on the Suunto 9 Peak. Although, you know, I don't swap them out on a daily basis, so neither system really has its advantage for me. Flipping the watches over, you'll find both watches have their charging ports on the back. The Garmin Fenix 6S uses the proprietary Garmin cable that's on every Garmin watch now, where the Suunto 9 Peak has a proprietary charger just for the Suunto 9 Peak. I do like the magnetic charger that's included with the Suunto 9 Peak, but it does bum me out when watch brands offer a new charger for every watch that rolls out, because it means that charger will be a lot harder to find down the road if you lose your charging cable for whatever reason. Whereas Garmin, you can basically go on Amazon and buy a 3-pack for like $10 now because they're so popular. Next to those charging features, you will find the heart rate sensor on both of these watches, and both have an SpO2 sensor as well, so it can pick up blood oxygen saturation level. We'll look into accuracy of these sensors a little later on in this video. Okay, now let's talk about the display of these two watches. The Suunto 9 Peak and the Garmin Fenix 6S actually have the same size 1.2-inch transflective display. However, you will notice a couple of things about these two displays. First of all, the Suunto 9 Peak is a larger watch with the same size display, so inherently it has thicker bezels around the perimeter. These bezels are actually pretty chunky, and Suunto tried to hide this by making the background of all of the pages black, but if you switch to a white background, they're very obvious. The Garmin Fenix 6S doesn't have the smallest bezels in the world, but they are much smaller than what's on the Suunto 9 Peak, and that just makes it look a little bit more modern. Another nuanced difference between these two displays is that I've noticed that it's just a little easier to read the Garmin Fenix 6S. I don't know if that's the anti-reflective coating that they put on the Sapphire, I don't even know if it has one, but at different angles there's just more reflections coming off the Suunto 9 Peak. I don't know if that's something you can see in this video, but it's something I see in person. And when it comes to the backlights of the Suunto 9 Peak versus the Garmin Fenix 6S, it's really no competition. The Garmin Fenix 6S is brighter, has more contrast, it's easier to read when the light's on. It's just all around a better backlight in my opinion. That said, the Suunto 9 Peak does have a couple of nice features in regards to the backlight. It actually has an ambient light sensor built in, so it can actually automatically adjust the backlight brightness and intensity when you're in the dark or in bright situations. When it comes to the user interface on these two watches, they are very different. The Garmin Fenix 6S has a 5-button layout and it does not have a touchscreen, whereas the Suunto 9 Peak has a 3-button layout, but it also has a touchscreen, so you can actually swipe around the menu with your fingertip. Personally, I like the buttons on the Garmin Fenix 6S a little bit better. I like buttons when I'm navigating the menu because I know what I'm doing, and with touchscreens, if your hands are sweaty or it's raining out or something, it can be an issue with the Suunto 9 Peak. The good news is that you can control the Suunto 9 Peak fully from the buttons. You don't have to touch the screen if you don't want to, so that's typically what I do when I'm wearing the Suunto 9 Peak. Okay, when it comes to the actual user interface inside of the watch and the software, Garmin has fully customizable watch face, so you can basically change any data field that you see on the watch face. For me, I have battery information, steps, mileage for the week, the high and low for the day in terms of the weather, and of course the time and date. I can fully customize this however I want, and I can actually download third-party watch faces from Garmin Connect IQ Store, which is basically like an app store for Garmin watches. And there's a ton of watch faces to choose from on the Connect IQ Store, really hundreds to choose from. The Suunto 9 Peak, on the other hand, has a much simpler watch face, but you can fully customize this as well from what's pre-installed on the Suunto watch. However, there's not a ton of choices to choose from. On the Garmin Fenix 6S, if you click the down button, you'll drop into what's called widget glances. These are just truncated widgets so you can see a bunch of information at a glance of looking at your watch. So you can see here I have my weather forecast, I've got the sunrise and sunset, I've got the altimeter Baro compass widget here. The Suunto 9 Peak is pretty similar to the Garmin in that it scrolls vertically with the up and down buttons on the outside of the watch here, or you can swipe with your finger if you want to. From the watch face, if you click down, you actually drop into your wellness data. So you can see here's my heart rate widget, and there's a whole bunch of other wellness data available here. Active time for the week, my sleep from last night, my VO2 max. And if you scroll up from the watch face instead, you get to your exercise widget. So here I can start an exercise. I can see my navigation if I want to, set up a waypoint or something like that. I've also got my logbook, which is all of my previous activities, and my timers and the settings for the watch itself. Okay, let's talk about smartwatch features between these two watches. The Suunto 9 Peak has the ability to pair with your phone and display your phone's notifications, so like text messages, Facebook messages, Instagram. Any notification that you get on your phone will pop up on the Suunto 9 Peak, and that happens in activities and outside of activities. The Garmin Fenix 6S also has the ability to display your phone's notifications, but it also has a few other features up its sleeve. In the base model Fenix 6S, it has the ability to control the music on your phone, so you can actually play and pause, you can turn your volume up and down from your phone's Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcast, any service that's on your phone is controllable from the watch. And if you decide to opt to the Garmin Fenix 6 Pro or Sapphire models, you also have the ability to store music on the watch itself. You can use services like Amazon Music, Spotify, I think Deezer, iHeartRadio. All of these services give you the ability to download the music directly to the watch, pair earbuds to the watch, and run phone free and listen to music at the same time. It's pretty cool. On top of that, we also have Garmin Pay on the Garmin Fenix 6S that allows you to pay for goods with your watch without digging out your credit card. The Garmin Fenix 6S Pro and Sapphire also have Wi-Fi, which allows you to sync with the Garmin servers to upload your activities phone free, so you don't have to pair your phone or have it with you all the time. So I think you're catching my drift here. The Garmin Fenix 6S has a lot more going on in terms of smartwatch features, where the Suunto 9 Peak is a little bit more basic in this department. Okay, let's talk about wellness tracking on both of these watches. Both watches will track your steps and calories burned throughout the day, 24 hours a day. In both of these watches feature an energy level estimator, which is actually pretty interesting. Garmin has what's called body battery, which tries to turn your body into a battery, where if your body's at 100%, you're ready for training and heck, you're gonna have a great day. But if your body's down at like 5 or 10%, you're in rough shape and you probably need a nap. And I found this to be actually pretty accurate with how I feel throughout the day. What's interesting is that this will actually charge up if you're just stationary sitting in a chair, for instance, doing work at home or something like that, so you don't have to be sleeping to be recharging. Now, if we go over to the Suunto 9 Peak and look at the body resources widget and swipe over, you can see that it's only at 37%. And keep in mind, I've been wearing these watches together 24 hours a day for the past several days to get a baseline on both of these readings. Another differentiation between these two features is that Garmin's body battery actually logs all of this data in Garmin Connect, and you can go back weeks, months, years, and see all of this historical data of your body battery. Whereas the Suunto 9 Peak works on a day-by-day basis. You can't go back and look at historical data when it comes to body resources. And both of these watches do track your sleep habits, and you can see here that both recorded almost the same amount of sleep last night. I've got 8 hours and 49 minutes on the Suunto 9 Peak, and 8 hours and 40 minutes on the Garmin Fenix 6S. And I've found the stats on both of these watches in terms of sleep tracking lined up pretty dead on, even when it came down to the sleep stages, which was kind of surprising to me. So whatever magic they're doing behind the scenes is pretty much the same between the Garmin Fenix 6S and the Suunto 9 Peak in terms of sleep tracking. When it comes to training, both watches have training tools that are really helpful for training for a marathon or any kind of event. You can see here that both watches have the VO2 max estimation. I don't know which one's right. I haven't been tested in a lab before. All I can say is that they're pretty similar, so that's good to see. The Garmin Fenix 6S also features a race predictor right on the watch to let you know how fast you could run certain distances. And both watches do have a form of training load and recovery advisor built into their platforms. The Garmin Fenix 6S actually can display it right on the watch without digging into the app, whereas the Suunto 9 Peak, you need to dive into the app to see this information. In terms of battery life, between the Garmin Fenix 6S and the Suunto 9 Peak, they've got a lot in common, but they differentiate a bit too. The Suunto 9 Peak is actually pretty complicated when it comes to battery life, because because there's a lot of different specs to choose from. So there's something called time mode that basically turns the watch just into a watch without having any other functions like heart rate data or any of that. And in that mode, you can get up to 2 weeks with the Suunto 9 Peak. If you go into regular smartwatch mode and you're getting notifications and text messages and heart rate data, you can get about 7 days with the Suunto 9 Peak. In terms of GPS on time with battery life on the Suunto 9 Peak, there's a lot of different options here. So in high performance mode that gives you the best accuracy, you get up to 22 hours. If you switch into endurance mode, if you have a longer event, you can get up to 56 hours of GPS activity, but it reduces the sample rate of the GPS position to 1 minute. So you give up a lot in terms of accuracy to get longer battery life. And then there's 2 more modes on top of that. There's ultra mode and there's touring mode, and those can give you up to 162 hours of battery life at the sacrifice of a ton of data. First of all, there's no heart rate sensor turned on, and you give up the GPS accuracy. It's a little simpler when it comes to the Garmin Fenix 6S. As a regular smartwatch, you can get up to 7 to 9 days depending on use with the Fenix 6S. And in terms of GPS on battery life, you get up to 25 hours in the standard GPS mode. And again, if you've got a really long event, you can go into Ultra Max mode, which will give you up to 50 hours on the Garmin Fenix 6S. Again, that Ultra Max mode does sacrifice a bunch of accuracy, so you shouldn't use it every day, but it is there in a pinch. There's one more mode on the Garmin Fenix 6S called Expedition mode. That'll give you 20 days of GPS performance out of this tiny watch. However, your position is only updated every 1 hour. So again, very little accuracy there. The nice thing on both of these watches is that they can be fully customized to really tailor your power consumption needs. At the end of the day, they both last about 7 days in standby time or smartwatch mode, and they're pretty similar in terms of GPS mode, but the Garmin Fenix 6S just gets a little bit more battery life in terms of GPS mode. One trick the Suunto 9 Peak does have up its sleeve that the Garmin Fenix 6 doesn't have is a quick charge feature. It's actually pretty impressive. If you charge the watch for like 15 minutes, you get like 50% of the battery life of the watch, where the Garmin Fenix 6S takes a couple of hours to get back to a full charge. Okay, let's talk about actually tracking an activity with these watches. After all of that talk, that's kind of what these things are designed for. Both the Garmin Fenix 6S and the Suunto 9 Peak have a ton of activity profiles to choose from. There's really an endless supply, and there's really something for everybody here. And the nice thing about both of these watches is that you can duplicate activities and rename them, or add your own activities and make custom activities, so you're not really shoehorned into any particular activity name. When you're actually out on a run or a ride, you can see here that both watches offer a bunch of information that you can see at a glance, and all of this information and data fields are fully customizable from within the app or right on the watch itself in the case of Garmin. Both the Suunto 9 Peak and Garmin Fenix 6S are compatible with external sensors, heart rate sensors, armbands, power sensors on bikes, running power sensors. All of them out there are compatible with both of these watches. All right, let's talk about navigation features when you're out doing those activities so you don't get lost. The Garmin Fenix 6S and the Suunto 9 Peak both offer some version of navigation features. The Garmin Fenix 6S base model offers breadcrumb mapping. What that means is basically like a little squiggly line on the screen that you want to keep your little blue arrow on. However, if you upgrade to the Garmin Fenix 6S Sapphire or Pro models, you get full topo mapping, which is really impressive. Basically, these topo maps have trail markings, road names, every little detail a map has, and they're fully routable. So you can pick a pinpoint on the map on your watch and route there just by using your watch, not touching your phone at all. Really powerful stuff, and entirely offline and built into the watch, so you don't even need an internet connection. The Suunto 9 Peak also has some form of navigation. Basically, you can click into routes, and you can see here's the test route I already built in the app, and I can follow this in real time as well. However, this is only a breadcrumb map. There's no context here, no road names, no trails, no topo features, no contour lines, anything like that. In real life, both of these watches are fully functional in terms of navigation features. The Garmin Fenix 6S Pro and Sapphire just take it a step further with full mapping. Okay, I think the navigation features are a good segue into what's involved on the phone using the respective apps for either Garmin or Suunto. Garmin uses the app called Garmin Connect, which they've had around for a really long time. It's really well polished. It's got a ton of information on board. You can see from my main dashboard here, there's all of my stats for the day, my body battery stats, my sleep stats. I've also got my stats from yesterday and the averages from the past 7 days. This layout is also fully customizable. I can reorder these widgets or hide or show them as I please. You can also jump over to the calendar tab and see all of your historical data that goes back several years for me, but you can jump into any particular day, see what running you did, what your heart rate was that day, what your stress level was, your steps. All that information is logged in Garmin Connect. Within the Garmin Connect app, you can also dive into individual health stats. Like you can see here, I've got my sleep, my weight, my calories burned, heart rate, all of that stuff is logged. And if you dive into any particular one, you can see your stats from the past 7 days, 4 weeks, or even up to a year, which is pretty cool to see on a graph. And finally, within the Garmin Connect app, you can go into the course builder. You can see all the courses I've already built in Garmin Connect, but let's make a new one. I'll say I want to make a trail running route. And from here, I have two options, automatic or custom. The automatic function will actually ask what direction you want to run in, and it will make up a course for you. You don't even need to tell it what to do. Making a custom route is exactly what it sounds like. And the route building feature within Garmin Connect is actually really powerful. I can simply put my start point anywhere on the map, and then I can give it an endpoint by clicking anywhere else on the map. And you can see here, Garmin Connect automatically calculated the best route between those 2 points. And so you could do this on trails, roads, anywhere where there's mapping features within Garmin Connect. After I save this activity, again, I can sync it over to the Garmin Fenix 6S and follow my course that I built on the phone in real time on the watch. Now let's jump over to the Suunto app. The Suunto app is very different. So they redesigned this app, I think about a year ago. It's much simpler layout. So from the Suunto homepage, you've got your training load and training status on the top left. You've got your active time for the week. You've got your body resources here. And then you've got your sleep data right there below that. You can get more data about any of these widgets by clicking on them. So if I click on sleep here, you can see my total sleep duration, my wake up resources, how much body resources I got back, my average heart rate for the sleeping period, my sleep quality. And below that, I've got my body resources and more heart rate data along with my blood oxygen saturation level, steps, and total calories burned. Clicking on the calendar tab here, we've got my previous activities for the week. Clicking into any particular activity within the Suunto app gives me a bunch of additional information about that activity. So I've got a map of my activity, and then below that, I've got the total duration, total distance, and just like the Garmin app, I do have a course builder app built right into the Suunto app, and this is actually really powerful. You can do the same thing. You can add a new course. I'll create a route, and I can pick point A, and then I can pick point B, and the app will actually route me between those 2 points, and I can continue to add new points along the way and waypoints and all kinds of information within the app. This is super powerful. It might be a little bit better than the Garmin implementation, which is kind of surprising. And again, once I'm done designing a course in the app, I can sync it over to the Suunto 9 Peak and follow that route in real time on the watch itself. In terms of the overall ecosystem between these two watches, Garmin Connect can be viewed on a computer, a laptop, full-blown desktop computer, and on the phone app, where Suunto is limited to the phone app itself. Okay, if I were to cover all of the features within the Garmin Connect and Suunto apps and all of the features that they have, this video would be several hours long. I'm just going to generalize and say that the Garmin Connect ecosystem has a lot more features and a lot more information available compared to the Suunto app. The Suunto app is a little bit more basic and tries to focus on the day-by-day rather than like bigger pictures or more granular data. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes I feel like Garmin Connect is a little bit overwhelming. Like I don't know if I need a graph of my body battery for like years back in time. That's something I really just look at on the day-by-day. And I think Suunto realizes that and kind of caters their app in a simpler and easier to digest way. But Garmin Connect is definitely more for the data nerds that want to like download Excel spreadsheets and, you know, compare stuff and print things out, because you can do it on a computer rather than just being limited to the phone. Okay, let's talk about GPS accuracy between the Suunto 9 Peak and the Garmin Fenix 6S. Honestly, they're pretty similar. I've taken these watches out on several runs together in various conditions, in the rain, out in the sun, in the mountains, heavy cloud cover, and they both have pretty similar results. I will say neither one is perfect. Both have a fair amount of GPS drift that can happen occasionally, but they're both totally acceptable. And at the end of most of those runs, the distance between the two watches was within like 1 or 2 tenths of a mile. And if you're not a total nerd like me comparing them side by side, it's not something you'll ever notice being an issue. The Suunto 9 Peak does have one trick up its sleeve with a snap to track feature, where if you're following a navigation route like we just talked about, it'll actually snap the GPS route to the road or trail that you're on rather than using the GPS information. This can make an absolutely perfect track if that road or trail map that you're on is accurate. That said, this feature only works if you're following a course using the navigation feature. All right, let's talk about heart rate accuracy now using the optical heart rate sensors on both of these watches. To test out these two watches in terms of heart rate accuracy, I've taken them out on a bunch of different runs while also wearing the Polar H9 ECG chest strap. That Polar H9 is super accurate, so that's the one I use as a baseline for comparison. For the most part, these two watches are very similar when it comes to heart rate tracking, but I think I will give a slight edge to the Suunto 9 Peak in terms of heart rate accuracy because the Garmin Fenix 6S can actually be a little bit low at the beginning of a run and then kind of catch up to speed, a couple of minutes into the run and stabilize, but there will be spikes and drops here and there. Okay, it's time for final thoughts. Which one's better, the Suunto 9 Peak or the Garmin Fenix 6S? Well, neither one. Honestly, if you're a Suunto fan and you're in the Suunto ecosystem already, you're used to their app, maybe you have a Suunto 9 Baro and you're looking for an upgrade, maybe something a little bit smaller, the Suunto 9 Peak is a really nice watch with a ton of features. However, when you look at the price of the Suunto 9 Peak coming in at $569 for the steel model I have here versus something like the Garmin Fenix 6S Pro, which is about $100 more, there's a lot more features on the Garmin Fenix 6S Pro. Full mapping, offline music, the ability to download additional apps from the Connect IQ store, more customization, and of course, the awesome Garmin ecosystem that we just looked at. The Suunto 9 Peak, however, is built really solidly. I really do like the design, and I do like wearing this watch on the daily because it's just pleasant to wear and easy to use. So it's kind of a toss-up. If you absolutely love Suunto, their design, their app, their ecosystem, the Suunto 9 Peak is the best Suunto ever made. But if you want more features, you've got a little bit more money to spend, and you don't mind diving into a new ecosystem like Garmin Connect, the Garmin Fenix 6S has just a lot more features for not that much more money. But that's just my opinion. That's just me spewing my opinion on you. You don't have to take it, and I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comments below. Which one are you going to pick up, the Garmin Fenix 6S or the Suunto 9 Peak? Let me know down there because I'm really interested. And that kind of wraps it up. There's a lot of features I did not cover in this video. There's a lot more to talk about here, but this video is just getting too long and I'm really tired, so I'm gonna leave it there. If you are interested in picking up either a Suunto 9 Peak or a Garmin Fenix 6S, I will have links down in the description that do help support my channel, but they don't cost anything extra to you. And as always, if you want to see more behind the scenes stuff that's going on around here, check out the Patreon link down in the description below. That really helps me out. And also consider subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button while you're down there because that helps me out too. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.